Hello all, I am Kalyan Sasidhar, Associate Professor at DA-IICT. I have been here since 2016 as a faculty. My research area broadly falls under this term called Pervasive computing, also known as mobile computing or ubiquitous computing, and specifically I work in the field of mobile sensing. So the term mobile sensing was coined based on the fact that with smartphones which have a lot of built-in sensors, examples like accelerometers, your gyroscopes, your barometer sensors, your microphones, and even your camera, these are all sensors. So how do we utilize these built-in sensors to collect data of real-world phenomena and interpret or infer something interesting from that data? So this is what is called mobile sensing, and as an example, you could use these smartphones to detect the kind of physical activity a person performs, as simple as walking versus running versus taking the stairs or taking the elevator. Typically the process involves you first develop a mobile app that accesses the application programming interfaces associated with these sensors. We collect the raw data, that is the data from these sensors, and then we apply those sensor data to machine learning algorithms which learn certain patterns from this data, and then they help us in classifying the kind of activity that we look at. For example, is a person walking versus running or something else? And so this is very important because your physical activity levels translate to your physical health. So human activity recognition is one of the problems that are being solved under this mobile sensing paradigm. So in that context, myself along with one of my colleague, Professor Alka, we are working on a project which is funded by the Indian Council of Social Science Research on understanding the impact that smartphone has on college students and how that impact is affecting, or how is it actually connected to mental health. Because mental health, again, in the recent years has been a topic of great interest. At least it started from the Western countries when I was working there as a student. And it is picking up here in the sense people are getting concerned over this thing which is mental health disorder, especially students who are constantly under stress. They have this social anxiety, they have anxiety over exams, and pre and post COVID we all hear from others how students are feeling. So it is very imperative to understand what students go through, and one medium, or rather one platform that researchers have identified is, why can't we use a smartphone to see if something can be interpreted about the behavior of the students and see how that correlates with any of the mental health disorder, let's say depression or stress or anxiety. So one aspect of it is we use the smartphone and understand the usage of these students. How long do they use this particular phone of theirs, and at what times is the phone usage high, what time is it low, what kind of applications they use, how long do they sleep. We can get that from the inertial or the accelerometer sensors. How much of movement, physical movement, is there in the around. So if unfortunately now they're not in campus, but as long as they're in campus, do they actually move around to classes, to cafeterias, what is the duration that they move? And because understanding this activity levels, sleep levels, and the overall usage of the smartphone will help us understand some of these symptoms of some mental health disorders like depression. So clinical depression, since I'm not an expert in that area, but based on what I've read, a depressive person tends to keep himself aloof. He doesn't want to interact with people, and he might sleep excessively or he might not sleep. There is this variations in the sleep patterns, and then his social interaction levels also reduce. He, like I mentioned, he might just feel staying himself alone, and he might not even go out. So his movements are very, very low. His interaction levels are less. And if he has nothing else to do, he could be dependent on something else like a phone or any other device, and getting himself hooked onto social media or whatnot. So we want to look at that. Can we first extract these patterns and identify the ones which are abnormal, and these abnormal, the students who show these abnormal patterns may not show any sign of mental health disorders, but the idea is, can we do something about it? It could be 1 in a 500 or 1,000 students might have that kind of a symptom. So can we identify that and then see how to bring in a counselor or someone else to take it from there? And the other project which we recently started, funded by DST, is on the topic of indoor navigation for public governance or public buildings. So the task or the problem that we have to solve is come up with a solution where people who move in, let's say, shopping malls or railway stations or any other indoor areas, can they navigate themselves easier without really depending on without getting themselves lost inside the buildings. So we are working on coming up with a new solution for that, and these are the two funded projects that I'm working on. The other area that I'm also working on is in the Internet of Things domain. I'm specifically looking at this from the networks perspective. In other words, if you have hundreds and hundreds of IoT devices like your smartwatches, your blood pressure monitors, your smartphones, your smart alarms, and so on, all of these are sending data at a certain frequency every second or every minute. And if you have a network that is connecting all of these devices, how much of data are we getting on that network, and how will that impact the performance of that network in terms of the bandwidth or the packets, how much of data gets lost, and so on. So we have done quite a bit of simulations to understand this problem, and we will also be sort of creating a hardware-based test bed in the campus with different kinds of IoT-based devices to realistically or practically understand how this works, and can we come up with a solution for this. So IoT and machine learning is one area that I'm working on, and on the other side, which is mobile sensing.